The cruelest thing anyone ever did to you wasn't abandoning you. It was teaching you that abandonment is the worst thing that can happen. Since you were born, every movie you've watched, every song you've heard, every story you've been told has carried the same subliminal message. Being alone is failure. Not being able to keep someone is inadequacy. Losing something you love is the end of the world. But here's the contradiction no one ever explained to you. While they programmed you to fear loss, they turned you into exactly what people want to lose. Someone desperate, someone who suffocates, someone who loves like an addict craves their next fix. Carl Jung spent decades studying the human mind and discovered something disturbing. Most of what we call love is not love. It is terror in disguise. Terror of being alone. Terror of not being enough. Terror of discovering who we really are when no one is looking. And this terror, it didn't come naturally to you. It was implanted, carefully cultivated by a system that profits from your emotional dependence. Because a man who doesn't need external validation cannot be controlled by empty promises. A man who doesn't fear loneliness won't accept emotional crumbs. A man who masters non-attachment cannot be manipulated. Jung discovered that there is a huge difference between loving someone and needing someone, between wanting to be with a person and not being able to live without them, between dreaming about something and being enslaved by that dream. And that difference, it's the line that separates a free man from an emotional slave. But you weren't born a slave. No man is born desperate for approval. No child comes into the world fearing loneliness. That fear was instilled in you, methodically, through years of social conditioning. And those who profit from it know exactly what they're doing. They know that an insecure man spends more money trying to impress. They know that someone addicted to validation will accept bad jobs, toxic relationships, mediocre lives. They know that emotional dependence is the best business there is, because the product never completely satisfies, ensuring constant consumption. Before you can understand how to free yourself from this programming, you need to see how it was installed in you, how your purest instincts were turned into weapons against your own freedom. Have you ever noticed how every romantic movie follows the same script? The protagonist is incomplete until they find the right person. They pursue, insist, and don't take no for an answer. And in the end, when she gives in to the pressure, they call it true love. This isn't entertainment. It's social programming. Hollywood doesn't sell stories. It sells behavior patterns. And the pattern they sell is simple. You are half of a whole. Your happiness depends on finding your other half. And when you find them, you must do anything to keep them from leaving you. Notice how they romanticize obsession. The protagonist who shows up at her work uninvited isn't a stalker. He's persistent. The woman who checks her partner's cell phone every night isn't controlling. She loves him so much, she's afraid of losing him. The man who can't live without his wife's approval isn't codependent. He's a good husband. Every movie, every TV show, every song you consume is reprogramming your definition of love, teaching you that possessiveness is passion, that jealousy is caring, that emotional dependence is devotion. But why would the entertainment industry do that? Why turn billions of people into emotional dependents? Because dependents are predictable consumers. A person who defines their self-worth by their relationship will spend fortunes on expensive gifts, romantic trips, couples therapy. They will take jobs they hate to provide stability for their family. They will buy anything that promises to save their marriage. The advertising industry understood this decades ago. They don't sell products, they sell solutions to insecurities they themselves have created. Buy this perfume, and she won't leave you. Wear this outfit, and you'll be more attractive. Drive this car, and you'll look successful. Every advertisement is an injection of insecurity, followed by the promise of a cure through consumption. The education system has done the rest. From childhood, you have been trained to seek external approval. Good grades, noblesse, parental love, obedient behavior, noblesse, acceptance from teachers, academic success, noblesse, social value. You were never taught to find validation within yourself. You were never shown how to be complete on your own. You were taught that your worth comes from outside, from others, from institutions. You were conditioned to be an emotional beggar who lives for crumbs of recognition. And when you grew up and entered the world of relationships, you took that programming with you. You sought in others the approval you never learned to give yourself. You turned partners into judges of your self-worth. You began to measure your value by the love you received, not by the love you were capable of giving. Then came social media to finish the job. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all designed with an addictive architecture that exploits your need for validation. Every like is a dose of dopamine. Every comment is confirmation that you matter. Every share is validation of your existence. But look at what has happened to relationships in the digital age. Couples who spend more time posting about their perfect love than living real moments together. People who measure the quality of their relationship by the number of reactions to their couple photos. Men who only feel like they're really dating when they have photos to prove it on social media. Love has become performance. Intimacy has become a product. Relationships have become status symbols. And here's the cruelest trick. The more you seek validation online, the more insecure you become offline. The more you need to prove to the world that you are loved, the more you doubt that you really are. The more you display your happiness, the emptier it becomes. Jung understood this decades before social media existed. He knew that when you externalize your search for completeness, you become eternally incomplete. When you give your emotional power to others, you become eternally powerless. But perhaps the most sinister aspect of this programming is how it changes your biology. Studies show that emotional dependence activates the same areas of the brain as drug addiction. When you don't get the dose of attention you need, your body goes into actual withdrawal. Anxiety, depression, physical despair. They've turned you into an addict. And like any drug dealer, they control your dose. A little approval when you behave well. Withdrawal of affection when you question the system. Calculated intermittency to keep you coming back. Always begging, always dependent. But why is this programming so effective? Why do we so easily accept living as emotional beggars? The answer lies in the wound they exploited to control us. A wound so deep that most don't even know it exists. There is a wound in you that is older than your first memory, deeper than any pain you can name. And that wound is exactly where they planted the seeds of your emotional dependence. Jung called this the primal wound of abandonment. It's not something that happened to you. It's something that happens to every human being the moment they are born. You come into the world completely vulnerable, completely dependent, and for the first time, you experience separation. The terrifying feeling of being alone in an infinite universe. That wound never completely heals. It stays there, deep in your psyche, whispering that you are not enough on your own, that you need something external to feel complete. That loneliness is death. But here's what no one told you. That wound was meant to heal naturally, through the development of a strong, independent identity. You were meant to learn that you can be alone without being abandoned, that you can love without losing yourself, that you can dream without becoming addicted to the outcome. Instead, society did the opposite. It kept the wound open. It poked at it constantly with messages that you really aren't enough on your own, that you really need external validation, that you will really die if you are abandoned. And then, when you grew up and started dating, you weren't looking for love. You were looking for a cure for a wound you didn't even know existed. You weren't choosing partners. You were choosing emotional band-aids. Jung discovered something devastating. In most cases, what we call love is just a projection of unresolved trauma. You don't love the person. You love how they make you feel. You love how they fill the void you can't fill on your own. You love how they temporarily silence the fear of abandonment that has haunted you since childhood. That's why you confuse need with love. That's why you call that desperate feeling of needing someone passion. That's why you become addicted to a person's presence and call it not being able to live without them. But look at what happens when you love this way. You don't see the real person. You see what they represent to your wound. They become an object, a remedy, a drug. And when they inevitably fail to completely heal your pain, because no person can do that, you become disappointed. You resent them. You become possessive. The ego, that defense system Jung studied so much, panics. It realizes that its medicine may escape and develops desperate strategies to keep the person trapped. Emotional blackmail, control disguised as care, jealousy disguised as love. You start monitoring every gesture, every word, every facial expression of the person, looking for signs that they may abandon you. It turns the relationship into a state of constant vigilance. The person you love becomes a source of perpetual anxiety. And here's the cruel irony. The more you try to control someone so you don't lose them, the more you push them away. The more you show that you can't live without them, the more they realize that you don't love them. You need them. And no one wants to be anyone's emotional crutch. Jung realized that the ego isn't just a defense system. It's a system addicted to family suffering. It prefers the familiar pain of abandonment to the unknown joy of true intimacy. It prefers the predictable anxiety of trying to control someone to the unpredictable peace of simply loving. This explains why you sabotage healthy relationships, why you feel more in love with people who treat you badly, why you confuse drama with intensity. Your ego has been programmed to associate love with suffering, so anything that doesn't hurt doesn't feel real. But perhaps the most sinister aspect of this dynamic is how it replicates itself in every area of your life. The same wound that makes you cling desperately to people makes you cling desperately to dreams, careers, identities. You don't want success. You need it to prove your worth. You don't dream of achievements. You're addicted to the fantasy of how they will cure your feelings of inadequacy. You don't build a career. You build an identity based on external approval. And when you finally understand this, when you realize that you've spent your entire life chasing band-aids for a wound you didn't even know existed, you begin to see the true cost of what you're doing, the price you're paying for living like an emotional beggar. What you're about to discover is going to hurt. Because when you finally see the real cost of living attached, you realize that you're not just losing things. You're losing yourself, piece by piece, until there's nothing left of the man you could have been. Let's start with the most brutal truth. Your attachment is killing the very thing you're trying so hard to protect. Think about the last relationship you fought to save. Remember how you behaved in the last few months. Checking her phone, analyzing every word for signs of rejection, asking questions laden with insecurity disguised as genuine interest. You weren't loving, you were strangling. True love is space. It's freedom. It's the ability to be with someone without needing to possess them. But when you love with attachment, you turn love into a prison. The person you love becomes a hostage to your insecurities. Jung observed that possessive love is not love. It's emotional vampirism. You suck the life energy out of the person trying to fill the void inside you. And they feel it. They feel like they're being drained, like they're losing pieces of themselves to feed your fear of abandonment. That's why they pull away. Not because they don't love you, but because you are literally consuming their essence. And the more they pull away, the more desperate you become. The more you try to control them, the more you accelerate the very abandonment you fear so much. Now look at your dreams. Those goals you pursue with desperation, measuring your worth by how quickly you achieve them. You have killed the joy of dreaming by turning dreams into obsessions. You have turned the process into anxiety and the result into validation. When you cling to a dream like this, you stop living in the present. Each day becomes just another obstacle between you and the future happiness that the dream promises. You put your life on hold, waiting for the external achievement to finally make you feel complete inside. But here's what Jung discovered. When you finally achieve that goal you were desperately pursuing, the feeling of emptiness doesn't go away. Because the problem was never the absence of the goal, it was the absence of inner fulfillment. So you simply transfer your attachment to the next dream, the next goal, the next promise of completeness. You become an emotional nomad, always running toward an oasis that turns out to be a mirage when you finally get there. And in the process, you lose the only real thing you have, the present moment. The ability to be here, now, complete as you are. The ability to find joy in the journey, not just the destination. But perhaps the most devastating cost of all is what happens to your identity. When you live attached to external things, relationships, achievements, approval, you stop knowing who you are without them. You begin to define yourself by the roles you play. I'm so-and-so's boyfriend. I'm the guy who works at X company. I'm the one who's successful at Y. Your identity becomes a house of cards built on things that can disappear at any moment. And when one of those cards falls, when the relationship ends, when you lose your job, when the dream doesn't come true, your entire identity collapses along with it, because you haven't built a solid inner self. You've built a reflection of external circumstances. Jung called this living outside yourself. You become a stranger to your own soul. You stop listening to your inner voice because you're obsessed with external voices. You stop feeling your own desires because you're addicted to the approval of others. Gradually, imperceptibly, you become a hollow person, a walking role, a performance without an actor. You exist for others, but not for yourself. And here's the bitter irony. The more you lose yourself trying to please others, the less interesting you become to them. People sense when they're talking to a mask, not a real person. They sense the hopelessness behind the smile, the neediness behind the kindness. You become exactly what no one wants to be around. Someone who doesn't exist on their own. Someone who needs constant validation. Someone who drains energy instead of radiating presence. But there is something even worse than all of that. The ultimate cost? The most invisible of all. You stop growing. You stop evolving. You stop becoming who you could really be. Because real growth requires you to let go of old versions of yourself. It requires you to allow dreams to die so that new ones can be born. It requires you to accept that people leave so that others can come in. It requires you to dance with the impermanence of life. But when you live attached, you freeze your evolution. You try to keep everything the same. You try to control all the variables. You try to stop time. And in the process, you become a statue in a moving world, an emotional fossil. Jung knew there was a way out. He discovered something that can break these chains forever. But first, you have to be willing to pay the price of freedom, to let die who you think you need to be in order to finally discover who you really are. Now you understand why they are so afraid of you discovering this. Because when a man masters true non-attachment, he becomes uncontrollable. He cannot be emotionally blackmailed. He cannot be manipulated by empty promises. He cannot be enslaved by his own fears. And that is the greatest threat there is to a system built on dependence. But before you continue, destroy a lie they tried to plant in you. Non-attachment is not coldness. It is not indifference. It is not building walls so high that nothing can touch you. That is hurt disguised as protection. True non-attachment is the opposite of coldness. It is love so deep that it does not need to possess. It is passion so intense that it does not need to control. It is life so full that it does not need to cling to any specific moment to feel complete. Jung discovered that when you become genuinely complete internally, everything changes. You don't stop loving. You love more deeply. You don't stop dreaming. You dream more freely. You don't stop caring. You care without destroying yourself. Imagine loving someone knowing that if they choose to leave tomorrow, you will be sad but not broken. Imagine dreaming of something knowing that if it doesn't happen, you will be disappointed but not desperate. Imagine living knowing that nothing external defines your internal value. That is the freedom they don't want you to have. The first step toward this freedom is brutal. You need to become your own emotional parent. You need to stop expecting the world to give you what you're not giving yourself. Love, respect, validation, security. All of this must come from within first. Jung called this returning to the self. You stop chasing in others what only you can give yourself. You stop seeking in external achievements the completeness that can only come from a developed inner life. But how do you do that in practice? How do you become emotionally independent in a world designed to keep you dependent? Start by observing your patterns of attachment without judgment. When you feel that familiar anxiety of losing someone, stop, breathe. Ask yourself, what am I really afraid of losing? The person or the illusion of security I project onto them? When you feel that familiar despair of not achieving a goal, pause, investigate. Am I dreaming about this because it truly inspires me, or because I'm trying to prove something to myself or others? Jung taught that awareness is the first step toward freedom. You can't change what you can't see. The second step is even more challenging. Learn the sacred art of active mourning. Because letting go of attachment means allowing things to die. Old versions of yourself. Relationships that no longer serve you. Dreams that have become prisons. But don't fight the grief. Don't try to speed up the process. Allow yourself to feel the pain fully, but without identifying with it. The pain passes through you, but it is not you. Jung knew that conscious grief is transformation. Every time you allow something to die within you, without desperately trying to resurrect it, you grow. Every time you let go without bitterness, you expand. And then something miraculous happens. You discover that you can love without suffocating. You can dream without becoming addicted. You can live without clinging. You love people for who they are, not for how they make you feel. You pursue goals that genuinely inspire you, not those that attempt to heal unresolved wounds. You live each moment fully because you are not obsessed with the next one. This is the most radical discovery of all. When you don't need anything external to feel complete, everything external becomes a gift, not a necessity. Relationships become celebrations, not crutches. Achievements become creative expressions, not desperate validations. You finally understand what Jung meant when he talked about true individuation, becoming who you really are, not who you think you need to be in order to be loved. And now you see the whole conspiracy. They taught you that letting go is losing, but letting go is the only way to truly win. They taught you that needing is loving, but needing is the death of love. They taught you that holding on is caring, but holding on is stopping living. Every wound they exploited, every fear they fed, every dependency they created, all to keep you small, controllable, consuming solutions to problems they themselves implanted. But when you master non-attachment, you break the entire programming. You become dangerous to a system based on scarcity. You become a free man in a society of emotional slaves. And here is the ultimate truth that Jung discovered. You never lost anything truly important. You only discovered what was never yours to begin with. The people who left were not yours. The dreams that died did not define you. The identities you lost were not who you really are. What is left when everything that can be lost is lost? You. The real you. Indestructible, incomparable, infinitely valuable simply because you exist. They taught you that letting go is dying. The truth is that letting go is the only way to truly live. Because when you don't need anything from the outside world to feel complete, the whole world becomes yours. Welcome to freedom. Welcome to real life. Welcome to yourself.
If you've made it this far, you've already taken a step beyond most people. You're subscribed to the channel, you watch the videos, you reflect on every idea. Now the question is, how far do you want to take this? If you want to take the next step and truly apply this knowledge to your life, the White Rabbit Codes is ready for you. The link is in the pinned comment. Remember, success is a decision. The choice is yours. Count on me and follow the White Rabbit.